Mama said, fulfill the prophecy, be something better. Don't make a legacy, manifest destiny. Back in the days, we wanted everything, Mama said, burn your biography, stay right to history. Light up your wildest dreams, museum victories. Every day, we wanted everything, Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. I'm tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. Had to have hopes for a living, shooting for the stars, but I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a car, but I always had a vision, always had hope. Had to have hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had hope. Hey guys, please introduce yourself in the chat. We're going to start soon. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. I'm tied up, no more love, and I'd hate to see you waiting. They say it's all been done, but they haven't seen the best of me. So I got one more run, and it's gonna be a sight to see. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision, always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision, always had high hopes. Had to have hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had Hey guys, hello. Okay, I'm over here having a warm-up dance party, but I'm super excited that you're here. Let me see if I can make myself a little bit bigger. Hey, hi. Okay, so if you haven't already, please introduce yourself into the chat. What I would like to know is your name, city, and profession, what you do for work. And this is going to be a really fun 4-day class. So today is day 1 of our 4-day series where we are not only going to be talking about how to come up with app ideas and how to make money with app ideas, but we're also going to be building live together a piece of an app, and we're going to be building something so you can really see how this works and how this is possible. So I just want to introduce myself, and then I'm going to go into more detail about what you can expect and what we're going to do. But if you have not already, please introduce yourself in the chat. Maria is in Bloomfield and is a tax accountant. Very cool. Continence, am I saying your name right? Is a cook. Very cool. Eric is a social media manager in Canada. Very cool. Hey, Cheryl. Very cool. Okay, so introduce yourself into the chat. Gil says, is this live? Yes, this is a live workshop. I am talking exactly to you, and you'll see that this is going to be interactive. We're going to be talking together, working together. I'm going to be answering your questions about building apps, about monetizing a business where you can build apps or build products for other people or build your own products. So we're going to be talking about both of those things. So let me just introduce myself if we have not met already. My name is Tara Reed, and I am a tech entrepreneur. So before becoming a tech entrepreneur, I used to lead marketing initiatives at Google, Foursquare, and Microsoft. So my background was at working at tech companies, but I was not the one who was coding or building the products. Right. And in 2014, I founded a really successful art startup. I built an algorithm to match people to artwork based on their taste, like painting, photography, etc. And I built that app and an algorithm to match people to artwork without writing any code. And so the process that I use is the process that I'm going to teach you today in this workshop, and also over the 4 days, because this is going to be a 4-day workshop where you can tune in each of the 4 days and really get clear on how this will work for you. So this process of coming up with app ideas, of building them without hiring a bunch of tech people. Let me see if I can move myself around so you can see me here. This process for me in my very first year of entrepreneurship, my very first year, got me a business that made $150,000 in revenue, and also $300,000 in checks that were written to me from investors who said, "We love what you're working on. We want to see you take this to the next level. Here you go. Right? Here's a check." And so I really want to share this process with you. For me, it's meant that I've been blessed to be featured in some awesome publications. Entrepreneur magazines feature me in their Young Millionaires edition. Forbes has done some really fun articles on how to succeed in Silicon Valley when you don't look like Mark Zuckerberg. I actually this morning was just on Cheddar TV talking about no code and really sharing this with people. I've done a fun TED talk on building apps without code. And so really this process of building apps without code, I want to talk to you about today. So let me know in the chat if you're ready to really dive into this. We're going to talk about a handful of things and actually build a piece of an app together today. And so let me know in the chat if you're ready to really go into this in detail. We're going to talk about how to come up with app ideas. Carolyn says, "I'm ready to learn." I love it. I love it. We're talking about how to come up with app ideas. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to make money with them, and we're going to start building. Okay. I see you guys are ready. Enrique says, yes. Latrice says, let's go with the exclamation point. I love it. I love it. You bet. All right. Okay. So one thing before we begin, if you have a pen and paper, a place to take notes, I highly recommend you go grab something where you can take notes for this class, because today we're going to talk about three major things. The first one is how to come up with an app idea that makes sense and is uniquely aligned to the things that you are going to be good at, right? We don't want to pick a random app idea. We want to pick one that leverages your strengths. So we're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to build a piece of an app. We're going to start today, and every day of this 4-day challenge, we're going to keep building that app until we're complete. Now we're going to build, you guys ever heard of Udemy before? Let me know in the chat if you've heard of Udemy before. Heard of Udemy? Udemy is a platform that allows people to learn things. And so we're going to be building our own Udemy-style platform today. And so let's jump into this. So I'm going to fast forward. The first thing I want you to take notes on and that we want to talk about is how to come up with a strong app idea. And this is the formula that I use. It's called the SMART idea formula is what it is. It's called SMART idea formula. And the SMART idea formula gives you a series of questions that you can use to brainstorm an app idea that you are already qualified to build, right? So let me give you an example of how this works. This is Josh. Josh is an entrepreneur I've had the pleasure of coaching. And when I sat down to work with Josh, we went through his SMART idea formula. So it's really just 3 questions. I want you to write these questions down in a notebook because you can use these same questions for yourself. So the first question that I asked him was, what do you do for work? Everyone tell me in the chat right now, what do you do for work? Let me know what you do for work. This is not a trick question. It's an easy question. We're going to build upon this to think about and brainstorm what kinds of app ideas you're uniquely positioned to create. So write down in the chat, what do you do for work? Let me know. Let me know what you do for work. Okay. Now, the second question of the formula is you think about what you do for work. For example, Lena is in marketing and Pancholo is a web designer. Yep, entrepreneur, trainer, at-home mom, a grant writer. Love it. I build online courses. Very cool. So that's the first part of the formula. You write down what you do for work. Easy. The second part of the formula is that you name one thing that you spend a lot of time or effort on at work. I want you to tell me in the chat, What is one thing that you spend a lot of time or effort on at work? It's like, oh, this part's really manual. I got to do this part again. What's the one thing you spend a lot of time or effort on at work? When I was working with Josh, he thought about this and he was like, well, as a music teacher, I've got to travel to each of the schools, the middle schools where I teach classes. And that takes a lot of time. It's really annoying because I can only be so many places at once. So I want you to tell me in the chat, what is one thing that is hard or time consuming about what you do for work? Doing the coaching, the marketing. Yeah. Answering different emails. Yeah. Customer service. Got it. Got it. Going over transactions, social media management. Yeah. Got it. Like we all have a part of our job. It's like, oh, we got to do this part again. It's annoying. It's manual. So then the third question in the SMART idea formula is, let's say you built an app to alleviate some of the stress of that thing you just told me was hard or time consuming, right? You built an app to alleviate something, to alleviate that. What could the app do? So when I was talking with Josh about this, he told me he was a music teacher and that he spends a lot of time traveling back and forth to schools. And so what could an app do? Well, the app could teach the classes and facilitate the classes for him. The students could log in. They could complete lessons. They're composing songs, so they can compose songs inside of the app, right? And the teachers could give grades, and you could sell this to schools. And this is a true story. This is exactly what Josh did. He built an app for schools to teach music classes. He has 23 schools in the state of Virginia who are paying him to use this site and app that he built. He's made $30,000 with it thus far. And he's also gotten $50,000 from investors who said, we love this idea. We want to write you a check and see you take it to the next level. And he did all of that in 6 months. Came up with the idea, built the app, and got customers on board. So Josh says this app is definitely a revenue generating endeavor. I did not know it would grow as quickly as it did. We got television and radio interviews in the process. It's been a blessing. So let me put up on the screen a list of common things that apps can do. Maria says, wow, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? That his story is pretty cool. So here's a list on the screen of common things that apps can do. These are not all the things that apps do, but these are common things that apps can do. So as I talk through these, I want you to tell me the number in the chat of something that could help with the thing you told me was hard or time consuming about your job. Okay, so put the number in the chat if you hear something that you're like, oh, that might be interesting. So the first thing that apps commonly do is they recommend things, right? A good example of this is Tinder. Tinder recommends dates, but you don't have to recommend dates. You could recommend people. You could recommend places. You could recommend all kinds of things. Number two, another thing that apps commonly do is they give people a directory of resources. Right? So there's a bunch of things, resources you need to be able to get through and parse through as part of maybe your job, as part of your hobby. Yelp is a good example of this. It's a directory of resources. Put number 2 in the chat if that might help you have an app like that to alleviate that problem we just talked about. Or put number 3 in the chat if maybe you could allow people to buy and sell things from each other or donate things to each other. Right? A good example of this is Kickstarter or Airbnb, where you rent things from each other or buy and sell or donate. Another thing that apps commonly do, number 4, is allow people to connect socially in a community. Think Instagram, for example. Think Facebook. Think Twitter. Number 5, another thing that apps commonly do is they allow people to track something, track the progress of something, for example. Salesforce.com is a good example of this. Or even Fitbit that tracks your health. Okay. Or number 6, put number 6 in the chat if this is interesting to you. Apps can commonly let people book a service and track the progress of that service. Right? Think about even like the Domino's pizza tracker when you order pizza and you can see the progress, or Uber, where you book a service and track the progress of the cars on the way. And number 7, apps very commonly teach something, right? There's lessons and videos and tutorials and assignments. Udemy.com, what we're talking about today, is a good example of this, right? So what you do with the SMART idea formula is you ask yourself, what do I do for work? What's one thing I spend a lot of time or effort on at work? And if I could create an app to alleviate that stress, which of these 7 things or combination of these 7 things could help? Now, you don't have to only do this formula for what you do for work. You also can look at it around what you do for a hobby. right? What you do for a hobby. And Linda says, I think this is way over my head. Linda, I really don't think it is. If you can think about what you do for work and something that's hard about it, all we're doing is we're talking about a formula and a structure you can use for coming up with app ideas. So let me give you another example of how this can work, because it doesn't have to be centered around what you do for work. We can also think about what you do for a hobby, right? So this is Carlos. Carlos is another entrepreneur I've had the pleasure of coaching. And the first thing that I asked Carlos, similar, not what you do for work, but I asked him, what's something you do in your free time? Tell me in the chat for you, what's something that you like to do as your hobby or in your free time? What's a hobby that you have? For me, I really like dancing. What's a hobby? And watching dumb reality TV. Those are my favorites. What's a hobby that you have? Let me know in the chat. Right. Now, the second thing is part of this formula is after you've identified something you like to do in your free time, the second part is to identify one thing that is hard or time consuming about your hobby. So when I was talking to Carlos, and you can tell me in the chat what's hard or time consuming about your hobby. When I talked to Carlos, he told me I like to play basketball. And one of the things that's hard or time consuming is I've got to figure out which courts are available when I want to play. Sometimes there's too many people, sometimes there's not enough people, etc. Right? So one thing that's hard or time consuming for me, because I love dumb reality TV, I've got to figure out what new shows to watch, and just finding new shows. That's a part that, hard or time consuming. And then for the third part of this formula, I asked Carlos, okay, let's say we built an app to alleviate some of that stress. The fact that you don't know which basketball court to go to and figuring out what's available. What could happen in the app when someone logs in? And he thought about it. He was just brainstorming. And he's like, okay, well, maybe gyms could let their members log in and they could see which courts are free. And they could book the court in advance. And they could sell this app I could sell this app to different gyms and put the gym's branding on it. And this is a true story. This is exactly what Carlos did. He built an app to let gyms book people that are part of gyms, members of gyms, book basketball courts. And guess who his first customer was? The YMCA, who said, we would love to use this. We're going to pilot this in one location to start. We're going to pay you $300 a month just for this one location, and then we can scale. And he did all of that in 4 weeks, came up with the idea, built the app, and got the YMCA on board. Right? So if you're thinking like, hey, Tara, I don't know about this. I like the idea of building an app, but I don't know if I'm qualified to build an app. The thing is that if you use the SMART idea formula, you are building something that you are already inherently qualified to build. You're building something that you know something about. What you do for work, what you do for a hobby, you know something about that. You don't have to be the world's biggest expert, but you know something about it. And those are always really great places to start when coming up with an app idea. That was the first thing I wanted to talk to you about today in our warm-up. What you're going to notice is that in this 4-day challenge, I'm going to do a warm-up at the beginning, and the warm-up is always going to be something around your business strategy. We're going to do business strategy at the beginning of the class, and then we're going to actually talk about building the app itself. So we're going to transition in a moment from talking about how to come up with an app idea and business strategy to actually build it, right? And Monica has questions about how you get the info into the app, for example. Is it manual? How do you do it? And Denise is saying, like, I don't know if I can do what I need to do in my app. I want to talk about if it's possible. So that's what we're going to move over to and talk about next. But I want to just sort of round out the first part of this class by talking about the formula that I like to use for coming up with app ideas. Make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. So can we move on to talk about tools that I love to use to build apps without having a bunch of fancy technical knowledge? Can we move on? Let me know in the chat if you're ready to move on to the next part of class. Anyone got like a bunch of notes written down already? Good, good. Okay, I see some yeses in the chat. So we're going to move on now and talk about how to actually build. Enrique says, I just came up with a really good idea. Good, I'm glad. So we're going to move on to talk about the next part of this class, which is how to actually build this thing. Now, for those of you who have attended classes with me before, you might know my favorite tool for building apps without coding, right? Without having a bunch of computer science knowledge, without spending $20,000. Do you guys know that that's how much it costs? If you want to hire someone to build an app for you, it costs like $20,000 and up. Has anyone talked to an agency and they told you how much it would cost to get your app built? Let me know in the chat if you have gotten a quote and what they said for the quote. I'm just curious. But one of the alternatives to spending $20,000, you guys know where I'm going with this. Yes, one of the alternatives to spending $20,000 to get an app built for you, or one of the alternatives to spending 1 to 2 years learning how to code, or one of the alternatives to giving 50% of your app idea away to a tech co-founder who knows, is to build the app yourself without code. And I'm seeing in the chat, like you guys are telling me, by the way, how much companies told you it would cost. $20,000, $25,000. Yeah, like that's pretty common, right? Something around that, $29,000, something like that, right? So the alternative, let me share my screen here, is a tool that I really love called Glide. And what Glide does is it allows you to create your own app. Let me show this to you. And we've got some folks on the Glide team here. They're going to answer some of our questions about Glide in a moment. But I wanted to show this to you guys. Can you see my screen? So this is a tool that I really love for building apps. And here's how it works. Really, you start with a spreadsheet of sorts, and we're going to see this in a second, and you turn your spreadsheet into software. So you can put all kinds of things on your app, but the way that you build it is you put the elements in place, right? Almost like you're making like a PowerPoint presentation in a way, right? You don't have to have coding knowledge to do this. And you can have charts and graphs. You can have lists of things. You can have people enter data in. You can do all sorts of things. I'm sort of showing on my screen a little bit about what this looks like. And so we've got all sorts of capability with this product. And what we're going to do today is we're going to start building a piece of an app. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to, for the next part of this class, I'm going to build, and you're going to take notes. So don't build along with me yet when you take notes. The reason I want you to take notes is because immediately after this class, I'm going to send you the recording from this class. There was a question like, are we going to get the recording? Yes, you will get the recording. So I'm going to send you a recording. Jay says, wow, this is sexy. I'm excited to build. Yes. Okay. You guys are seeing where we're going with this. So what I'm going to do is you're going to watch me and take notes, and then I'm going to send you the recording. And as your homework, if you would like, you can build along and build what I built during the class as your homework. Now, why do I want you to take notes first and then build along second? Why? Because everybody moves at a different pace, right? At their own pace. And so I want you to be able to, if you want to, rewind the video or go or move faster if you want to, so you can do it at your own pace. So for now, I'd like for you to take notes. And also, if you have questions about the Glide platform, Andy just wrote this into the chat. Andy is here from the Glide team to answer questions that you have about the Glide software. So both Andy and I will be answering questions. But if you have questions that pop up about what's capable, put them in the chat. And then we're going to start building. And I'm going to show you step by step what this looks like. Right? Felicia says, how do you monetize? Tomorrow class, we're going to start with monetization. Karen says, is this really live? Yeah, girl, I'm talking to you. Okay. All right, cool. So we're going to use a tool called Glide. And let me move my screen. Now, if you already have a Glide account, you can log in right here in the top right-hand corner. Or if you do not have a Glide account, you can click sign up right here. And so when you click sign up, you're going to sign up with your email. And it'll ask you a couple things. Now, just take notes on this now, but when you do your homework and I send you the recording, you can actually do this and create an account. So it's going to ask you for your name, and it's also going to ask you how you primarily will use Glide. You can choose whatever option. For me, I'm teaching and taking a class. That's fine. You can choose also a team name. This might be like your company name. If you don't have a company name yet, your name, Tara's Team, is just fine. You can change this later. And you're going to click continue. And then you're going to just agree to, if you want updates from Glide and also the terms of service, you can answer these and then get started. So now you're in your account, right? What I just showed you, y'all saw how easy that was. I just answered a couple questions. That was the process of getting a Glide account. And we're going to, Andy's answering these questions about the price of Glide. Yes, we're going to be doing this challenge on the free plan. Cool. All right. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new project, right? So take notes on this, right? The first thing you do is sign up for an account, right? Done. Cool. Rosetta was asking if this is live. Yeah, Rosetta, this is actually live. It is Monday. I'm on East Coast at 8:26 p.m. Okay, so we're going to start a brand new project. And you can call a project whatever you want, right? I'm going to call it Tara's Udemy project because we're going to create our own version of Udemy, which we'll look at in a second, right? And we're also going to select, and this is different from what, if you've been to one of my classes before, we often do the Glide app, the mobile view. But we're going to build something called a Glide page. And you'll notice that you have these two options here. And really what this means, these options mean that you get to sort of emphasize if the main use case of this is going to be on the phone or the main use case is going to be on the computer. Now with Udemy, let's look at udemy.com because this is what we're going to build something similar to, right? So with Udemy is going to give us classes, and there's sort of hours of classes people can do inside of their Udemy experience, right? And so usually these classes are going to be viewed on the computer, right? So we're going to actually choose the Glide page. Now, I just want to clarify something really quickly. It's still going to be an app where people can log in and have their information saved. Right, we're still going to do that. It's still going to have those things. It's just going to be formatted for the web page, right, all the way across the screen. So we're going to choose Glide page and click continue. Right, and there's all kinds of different styles that we can start with. Let's start with a portal. We're going to choose portal as our start. So just make sure you're just for now taking notes. Just write down the notes that you have, that we created an account. We named we started a new project and named the project, and then the style is portal. And we're going to click continue. Now, finally, our last step in sort of setting this up is we have to set how we want our database to be set up. And I'm going to explain in a moment what the database is, but the database is really just the place where you save information about customers. So we're going to use what's already built in inside of Glide. It's called Glide Tables. Okay. And we're going to click Create Project. So this is the first thing you've got to do, right? You just have to answer some questions to get set up. And when I enter inside of Glide, it's going to give me a little tour. It's going to give me a little tour. So the tour looks like this. There are 3 tabs at the top of the screen. Do you guys see this right here? These 3 tabs right here. These are the 3 most important buttons inside of navigating Glide. So the first tab is for our database. This is where we're going to save things about the customer. We'll come back to talk about this in a second. This middle tab right here is the layout. This is where we're going to design what goes onto the page of the app. Okay. And then next is this settings gear. This third icon is the settings gear. This is where we can change how the app looks. So we're going to get to all of these tabs during this 4-day challenge. And then finally, there's a publish button in the top right-hand corner that allows me to publish this app, right? So if you're just joining, we are using glideapps.com. And what I'm doing right now is I am demonstrating what it looks like to build our start of an app. And every day over this challenge, the 4 days of the challenge, we're going to build a little piece of it until we've got a nice complete app. And your homework, if you'd like, you can just watch if you want. But if you'd like to participate with me, your homework is to watch the recording when I send you the recording and follow along. So those 4 buttons up here are going to be ones you're going to see me come back to, right? We're going to come back to this, right? Okay, so on Udemy, let's take a look at Udemy. This is the real Udemy. And you'll notice that the first thing we see on Udemy is we immediately start to see classes that you can take. These are all classes that you can take, right? And so we need to set up the app that we're building to have classes that people can take, right? We're going to start with that. So pop quiz, for those of you who've attended a class with me before, if I want to add classes to the app, I want the app to be able to have classes that people can take. What's the first thing I need to do? Any guesses? Let me know in the chat what your guess is for the first thing I need to do. What do you guys think? What do you think? Any guesses? Any guesses? Okay. All right. All right. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have a place in the app that has all of the classes that are available saved. We need a place to save the classes. And here's why we need a place to save the classes. Let's say that you come to the app and you're like, ooh, I want to teach a class. I know something about, insert your hobby here. So you want to teach a class on the platform. And you add a class to teach. And then you go to dinner and you come back from dinner and open the app again. And the app goes, hey, wait, can you tell me what the class was and all the information? Can you upload it all over again? I know you already did this before dinner, but can you do it all over again? That would be really annoying. It would be a dumb app if you had to enter information in over and over again because the app couldn't remember anything. I think we all can agree that that would be a frustrating experience and we would close the app and never download it and use it again, right? So the first thing that we need to do is have a place for our app to save information about what the classes are. And the place that we're going to do that is the database. The database is the place that saves information about your app, about your users, all of that. So in order to not have a dumb app, we need to have a place to save the class information so that when people come back, it's still there, right? Does that make sense? Give me a makes sense in the chat if you understand why we would need a database so that we can have a smart app that has a place to save information. Y'all get that? Yes, the database saves everything. Exactly. That's exactly right, Jay. Yes. Yes. Okay. So to do that and to set that up, we need to go over to this tab right here called the data editor. That's the first thing that we want to do. We want to go over to the data editor. So we're going to click on that. And you can see that there's kind of some like fake sample data that's already in here. But we have over here these tables, and these tables have different types of data in them. And we want to create a brand new table called courses, right? A brand new table called courses. Any guesses if I want to create a brand new table, pop quiz / guess, what do you think I should click? If I want to create a brand new table with all the courses, because the table is kind of like a spreadsheet, right? Only you can see it as the app creator, but it's in the background. The database is in the background and it has rows. So every course is going to have its own row. Okay. All right. All right. This is good. This is good. So we're going to click the plus sign next to table if we want to add a new table. You guys got this. So we're going to click the plus sign next to table and we're going to create a new empty table right here. New empty table. And what's going to happen is Glide's going to create like a really random name for your table. We're just going to overwrite it. Like mine's called quizzical letters. When you do yours, it's probably going to be called something else random, but we're going to rename it and we're going to call it courses. See this right here? Courses. And it looks like there's already a name, like a column where we can put the name of the course. But what else would we need to save about a course? What about the course description? So we've got the course name, but what about the course description? Right? We also want to have a place to save the course description. What else do we want to save about the course? Maybe an image for the course, like to represent it. Anything else? Description for sure. Yes. What about like price? Yeah, Mary said cost. Yeah. Maybe duration. Yeah. Great. Great. Okay, good. Instructor's name. Yeah, all kinds of things that we could put in here. So anything that we want to save about the course, we need to create a column to save it. Because remember, if the app doesn't have a place to save the information, it's going to be dumb. So we need to have a place to save each of these things. So let's say we want to add description. What do you think I need to click if I want to add a place to save the description of the course? What do you think I should click? Any guesses? So look at this right here, this plus sign on the right side. I can add a new column here. So I'm going to click this plus sign, and it's going to create a brand new column. I'm going to call this description. Description. And the type can be text. That's good. You can leave that there and click done. So now I have a column to save the name of the course and a column to save the description. What else do we say? We talked about an image to represent the course. So let's click this plus sign again, and we're going to put an image for the course. But the type, if people are going to put images in here, it's probably not text. Any guesses what type of data I should set this to be? There's kind of a multiple choice in here. Any guesses what type of data this should be? For name, it's text. There's literally a text description or text name of the course. There's a text description of the course too, but the image is not text. What is the image? Right, right. It should be an image. And I know that that sounds so obvious, but here's the thing. On their own, apps are dumb. They cannot read your mind. So you have to tell it what to do. This is a column called image, and I want you to put images in there. I know that sounds self-explanatory, but you have to tell the app what to do at each step. Okay. We talked about maybe a few other things, like what about duration of the course? Let's click the plus sign here. Duration. And anything else you might want to add, right? You could keep adding, but we'll keep it simple for now and start with this, right? So let me put in some like sample information now, right? Some sample information for a course. So guys, give me some ideas into the chat. What kind of courses could people teach on this platform? Let's do definitely let's do a course on how to build an app using Glide. GlideApps.com. And the description is an awesome course where you can learn how to build apps without. I'm just making stuff like sample information up right now, right? And the image, if I click in here, you can upload your own image, or there's something called stock image right here that you can choose from. And this will give you a library of images that you can use as well. So let's see, you can put in a keyword like app and pick an image for it that you like. And then duration, let's say 4 days. That's the course we're doing now. Okay, let me add maybe another course. What else could I teach a course on? Nadi says cost saving meal prep. Okay, cost saving meal prep. A course that teaches you about preparing healthy meals on a budget. And here I can put an image, let's put a stock image in, but let's maybe find something not sprinkles. That is not good for meal prep. Let's try meal. Okay, here we go. Here we go. You can change these anytime. Let's make this a 5 hours course. And I'll put one more in there. What else did you guys suggest? Someone said investments. Okay, Linda. Investments. A class all about investing your money in the, let's say, stock market. And I can put an image in here. So someone earlier asked me a question. How do you get the information into the app? Well, it goes into the database. Now, this is not the only way that it can go into the database. You also can upload information if you have like a spreadsheet full already of information. There's different ways to do this, but this is the most basic way of how you can get information into your app, right? So does this make sense of what we've done thus far? I just want to recap what we have done thus far. Thus far, we created a brand new app using Glide Pages. And what we did was we went to the database first to set what courses were going to be first offered, right? And we put a column for every, so we created a brand new table called courses over here. And we created a column for everything we wanted to save about the course. And there's a row for each of the courses, right? Erica says this makes sense. I'm getting this. Starting to click a little bit. So now this is just the database, right? This is not how your customers are going to see it, but this is the starting work that you have to do so that the app can have this stuff saved, right? Saved so that it doesn't forget it. So now the next thing we need to do is design how this looks for the customer. So pop quiz, what do you think we should click if we want to design how this looks for the customer? What do we click? Remember, the database is for designing how the information is saved in the background. What do I click if I want to change how this looks for the customer, the layout of everything? Any guesses? I mentioned it briefly earlier. Ooh, you guys are good. Okay, all right, all right. The middle tab right here, that's called layout. We want to change the layout of how this looks for the customer, so we got to go to the layout. Duh. We're all learning this together, right? Okay, so we're going to click layout. And what we want to do is we want to add a new page. Essentially, the pages are over here. And there's contacts and companies. There's these pages that kind of already came with, by default, the app. Our app doesn't have contacts or companies, but Glide kind of just set up some examples for us to see. So what we need is we need a new page in the app called courses, right? So we're going to create a brand new page. And to do that, we're going to click the plus sign next to pages. We want to add a page, so we got to click the plus sign next to page. And we're going to choose new page from data that's already in the database. New page from data. And then Glide's like, hey, what data do you want me to use here? And we're like, duh, we want to create a new page of courses. So use the data that we set up already called courses. So we're going to click courses. And now we have a new tab in the app that has our courses listed, our 3 courses that we started with, right? Now, over here on the right, we can change some of the settings. We can change some of the settings. Before I change any of the settings, there's one thing I want to do. And remember I said earlier that like Glide kind of by default gave me contacts and companies. It kind of like put these pages by default in here. I want to hide those pages because they kind of came default, but they're not pages for Udemy and what we're building. Any guesses or pop quiz on how I can hide those sort of default pages that got created for me? Any guesses on this? What I can do? Because these are not contacts and companies. Those are not part of my app. All right, if I want to get rid of them. Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. You can kind of see it. And if you've been to my classes before, you know this. Okay, so see how if I hover over the page, there's an eye icon to the right of it? Y'all see that? So the eye means that this page is currently visible in the app. And if I want it to be invisible, I can click on it again and it will gray itself out. And you'll notice it said, I'll click it again. Here, look at this. It says up here, contacts, companies. See this right here on my app? But if I gray it out, it's gone. And same thing with companies right up here. If I click the eye icon next to the page so that it's no longer visible, it is gone. So now I got rid of the kind of like default stuff that came automatically that's not part of my idea or my app. Cool. So you'll notice a couple things here. We can see the courses that are available. We can see the name of the course. We can see the image of the course, and we can also see the description. Now, if we wanted to visualize it differently, we could. We could look at it in a grid view like this, or a list view like this. Right? Some of these don't really apply, like a calendar. You can look at things in a calendar, but this doesn't, the way that we're building it here, it's not really a calendar. But if you had dates on here, you could see it on a calendar. Or what we call a Kanban board. This is not really applicable to what we're building right now, but you can sort of drag things from one progress state to another, right? So there's all these different ways that you can visualize something in a table. Which one do you guys like best for what we're building? Maybe like the card or the grid or the list. Maybe one of these first three might be a nice way to look at it, right? Any thoughts? Pam's coming through with the notes. I love it. Great, Pam. Thank you. Great. Anyone like kind of how this looks? The card or the grid, maybe list. This is kind of like personal preference of, how you want it to look and how you want to design it. Let's maybe do grid. Some of you guys like card, grid. Okay, let's do card. Card's popular here. Let's do card. Okay. Now, one last thing before we pause for today, and we're going to keep building on this app, but I want to show you one more thing, and then I want to talk to you about how to get help with your app idea. But the one more thing I want to show you is, look at this. In the top right-hand corner, there's this button called Add. You guys see this? Add. And the reason this button is visible, if I look over here on the right of my settings, if I scroll down, there is an action that says allow users to add items. So that means that any user of our Udemy app can add their own course. And this is turned on. If I turn it off, watch, this add button in the app is going to go away if I turn it off. But I'm turning it on and off. And that will, if it's on, you're to keep it on, will allow people to add their own course if you want them to, right? So they can click this add button and they can put in their own name of a course, description of the course, image, and duration, and submit their own course right here, right? So people can add to it as well. Now we're going to pause here. We're going to talk more about adding. We're going to also talk about what happens when you click on the course. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about more about adding. We're also going to talk about what happens when you click on the course and you want to see what the course is about and the lessons and actually do the lessons. So we're going to keep building on this every day of this 4-day challenge. And at the end of this, you're going to have a really sophisticated app. Michelle says, why would you do that in your app? Why would you add something, right? Well, for example, Yelp does this all the time. Yelp has a setup where they are not responsible for knowing all the businesses in the world, right? They allow their users to add new businesses. So if your favorite restaurant is not on there, you can add it, right? And I just want to clarify that we're building just one example of an app. We're building a Udemy-Style app, but you can build all kinds of different styles of apps. Remember at the beginning of the class when I showed you all of those different types of apps that you could do, you can build all kinds of apps here, right? We're just building, I just picked something that you might know, Udemy as an example, and we're going to build on this every day of this 4-day challenge. So let me just check in for a second. There's one more thing I want to talk to you about, and then I'm going to open up for questions. Is this helpful? Are you guys learning stuff? Let me know if this is helpful and you're learning some stuff. Just want to check in. Yeah? Okay. All right. Good. Good. Awesome. Yay. Good. I see lots of yeses. Lots of yeses in the chat. Yes, with lots of S's. Spencer's got the gems icon going. This is great. Elisa says this works well for me because I'm building a course. Perfect. Even if you're not building a course and your idea is different, I just want you to see what's possible and this really cool tool called Glide that allows you to put this all together with whatever app idea is in your head. Okay, cool. All right, so for those of you who are like, I really like this and I want to keep coming to each of these 4 days between today and Thursday to build the app. I'm going to do the homework. I want to learn. This is exciting. And also, I have my own app idea. Anyone have their own app idea? I'm actually going to ask you this in the chat. Do you have your own app idea? Go put it in. Cool. Even if you haven't thought it all the way through, I'm curious, do you have your own idea that you want to build? Or maybe you might be interested in learning to build apps and creating a business where you build them, right, for people. But anyone, let me know if you have your own app idea. Here's something that you would like to build. Obviously, it's not exactly what we're building this week, but you have your own idea that you'd like to bring to life. Okay. Woo. Okay. Lots. Can you guys see the results? I've got like an 87% yes in here. Great. Okay, good. So if you would like to talk through your own app idea and getting help with your own app idea, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. So I run a program called Apps Without Code Bootcamp. And what it is an opportunity for us to work together for 2 months on your app idea. Not the sample app that we're doing together, but your actual app idea, right? So let me know in the chat. I'm just curious. What if you could get my help and launch your app business in the next 60 days? Like in 60 days, it's up and running. Type I'm in into the chat if you would be in for that. Yeah, good. Or what if you could have weekly access to your own startup coach who's not just helping you about how to build the thing, but also how to make money from it, how to come up with an app idea, all that. Type I'm in into the chat if you'd be in for that. Miguel says I'm in with lots of ins. And we're going to talk about this more tomorrow. If you could learn how to make your app a premium price point, so maybe you could charge $50 a month or more for a premium experience in your app. And if you did that, you would only need 170 signups, a little less than that, to make an extra $100,000 this year with your app idea. Type I'm in into the chat if you'd be in for that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so the bootcamp program that I run is all about helping you finally build the app idea that maybe you've been stalling on, or maybe you just came up with it right now, right? And it's also about getting a high quality app without spending a ton of time or a ton of money or taking so doggone long to get an action about this thing that somebody else executes on an idea because you just weren't doing it. This happens to people a lot. Right. So let me just really quickly tell you how the program works. There's 3 main parts to it. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk to me or my team about your idea and to see if it's a fit and see if you think it's a fit. So part 1 is the course. This is where I put all the stuff I wish I knew when I was getting started. Not just how to build the app, but also how to make money with the app. Right? So this is actually what it looks like when you get inside of bootcamp. There are 10 main steps in the program. The first step is that you schedule your orientation. So we have class together where we talk through and make sure that you have a plan that makes sense, right? So that's step 1, orientation. Step 2, you have some pre-orientation homework to do. And this pre-orientation homework is really about your business model, how you're going to find customers. It's really going to help you and come up with a plan for that so that we can talk about it in orientation. Step 3 is that you're going to learn beginner app skills. You're going to start to get really good at this app building thing in step 3. And then in step 4, you're going to schedule a design meeting with me and some of the app experts on my team. And what's going to happen in the design meeting is you're going to talk about your idea, and we're going to real time draw out all the screens that you need. So when you're done with that meeting, you have a clear roadmap of exactly what to do. A clear roadmap. That's what the design meeting is. Then step 5, you're going to schedule your intermediate app skills class. You're going to get even better at this, and you've got some intermediate app skills homework to do. Step 7 is that you're going to, and actually step 7 and step 8 are only apply, and I'll mention this in a second, to if you do the full package. So I have a full package and a half package of the program. The full package is where I build the app for you, and I also teach you about app building and marketing. So if you do the full package, step 7 and step 8 will apply to you. And this is where we're going to build about 70% of the app. We're going to get it almost done. And then we're going to schedule a meeting to look at the progress. And you can say, okay, I like this part. I want to change this part, etc. So step 7 is to schedule your review meeting if you want me to build it for you. And step 8 is to have the handoff meeting where I take the app and put it into your account so you have full 100% ownership of it. And now you can tweak it and go from there. So step 7 and step 8 are if you want me to build it for you. Step 9 is to schedule one-on-one tutoring sessions. And then step 10 is to schedule your marketing strategy consultation, because you're going to finish the app in step 9. And then in step 10, we've got to get even more detail about how we're going to get customers on board. So those are the steps of the course, right? That's part 1. Part 2 is that you get a community, this wolf pack of other entrepreneurs who support you. It's actually really cool because you can see in the chat today sort of what it's like to have other entrepreneurs sort of like in this with you and learning with you, taking notes with you. The reason this is important, and actually tell me in the chat if you have type experience into the chat if you have experience with this. A lot of you guys have people around you who do not understand your entrepreneurial mindset. They're like, I don't get it. I just think it's better for you to have a job. I don't know. Type experience if you have experience with that. Like people who just like don't really get it, don't really get how you think about entrepreneurship. Anyone experienced that before? They just not. Some people are not going to get it, right? And so being around other entrepreneurs, it makes a huge difference in your journey. So here's a post in the community. Shara says, hey, I'm about 90% of the way to my launchable MVP, the first version of the app. How about you? I was thinking we could test out each other's apps in a work session. We could do it together and we could help each other before we go live, right? That's support and what that looks like. So that's part 2 is the community. Jay says, yes, I've experienced. There's some dumb folks around me. I love it. I love it. Okay. And then part 3 is that you get your own startup coach. You come to class, you can share your screen, ask your questions. The classes are not in a platform like this. They're in Zoom. And so you have access to other classmates, to your instructors, to your coach, all of that, right? So here's what I'm going to do. We'll talk more and I'll be able to answer more questions about my 8-week training program later on in the workshop. I can say up front that there are 2 different options for the program if you want to do the full 8-week program, and the prices range from $2,000 to $6,000 depending on how much help and coaching you want. And we do have payment plans that are available, but that's for the full 8-week program. If you think that makes sense for you and is interesting to you, I'm going to drop the link for you to schedule a app strategy call with me and my team to talk through if this program is a good fit for you. So I just dropped the link. I will say that this is booking a call with us is first come, first serve. And what I mean by that is once I'm out of time slots, that's it. So when you click on that link that I just put into the chat, it looks something like this. And you're able to schedule a time. And we can talk about either the training program and me teaching you, or me teaching you and building the app for you. Either one, we'll talk about the different options. Cool. And the price for the program in full transparency, it ranges between $2,000 and $6,000, depending on how much help and coaching, if you want things done for you versus you want to do it and learn how to do it yourself. Those are the ranges. If that makes sense to you, go ahead and book some time to chat with me and my team about your idea. And I'm going to open up to questions that you have that you can type into the chat. Cool. Awesome. And by the way, just to be clear, the alternative to building your app this way is the common alternative. You spend $20,000 to hire a developer. to build the app for you. And I know for me, when I was starting, that was not an option, right? It wasn't an option. And so I needed to find a different way. All right, so I'm going to open up to questions. Now, keep in mind that we're going to be back tomorrow. So tonight, I'm going to send you the recording. You can follow along and do the building so you can catch up with me. And then, let me see. You don't see the link. Let me paste the link in for you again, just in case you don't see it. Cool. Okay. I just reposted the link. So I want to ask questions. What questions do you have? I'm gonna stay around and do a Q&A. And then as soon as the Q&A is over, I'm going to send you the recording so that you can do the homework and follow along to get your app in Glide, get your Glide account created, get, everything set up so that we can build upon it tomorrow for day 2. Cool. Okay, Maria has a question. What is the web address for Glide? It is glideapps.com. And let's see. Andrew or someone on my team, can you guys drop the link to glideapps.com? Jay says, can I add exercise videos to the app? Yeah, absolutely. You can totally add videos to your app. Absolutely. Let me pin this up here. You totally can. Kelly says, are we able to still attend the class for the next 3 days? Yes, absolutely. So tomorrow, our class is going to be at the same time. I'm going to email you with the link, but the same place, same time for day 2, right? Tomorrow. Cool. Awesome. Keila says, can the Glide app link be added to a web page once the app has been built? Yes, absolutely it can. So what you can do is you can, oftentimes you'll see this is like on a website, there'll be a button that says log in. And so when they click the login button, it takes them to your app, and you can absolutely do that. Yes. Kevin says, are there things like security codes and things like that with the app software? Yeah. So you can set it up, and we'll do some of this work. You'll see this, where people will have their own sort of security code password so that no one else can log into their account and their information can be confidential. So you absolutely can do that. Let's see. What other questions do you have? I want to make sure I get to answer all your questions. Gil has a question, and I actually would love, Andy, if you want to answer this, either in the chat or on audio. There's a question which is like, when do I pay Glide and how much? Can we talk about how much Glide as a software cost? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so there are a few different pricing plans depending on what you need. So the best bet is to head over to the glideapps.com website, check out the pricing page. You can do a lot on the free plan, but then we have a few other plans that unlock way more powerful features. You can go check that out.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And then there was another question I think is a good one for you, which is there a web browser that works best with Glide?
Ooh, I would say that Glide apps work great across all browsers. If you are on iOS, so if you're on an iPad or an iPhone and you want to add a shortcut to your home screen, this is one thing, and it's an Apple situation, not a browser situation. You'll need to use Safari to add that shortcut to your home screen. You won't be able to do that from Chrome or Firefox or anything else. But aside from that, Glide works great in all the browsers.
Yeah, great. I love it. Kendra has a question and a thought that I wanted to address because I think this is something people commonly think about. So I want to talk about this. Kendra says, my issue is this is something I'm interested in doing and pursuing, but I'm worried about my idea being stolen, or I'm concerned about that. Really, really good question and thought. Here's how I think about this, right? There is, for some reason in tech, we get really worried about somebody knowing your idea, right? But the reality is that the idea itself is not the brilliant part. The brilliant part is that you did it and that you made it. There are so many people right now sitting on the couch, watching TV, wishing that they were building something, but they're not taking the steps to be in a class to do it, and they will never build it, right? So I know a lot of people get really worried about like, oh, I don't want to like tell anyone about my idea. The reality is that the way you get customers, the way you get help, the way you get people to join your team, the way you get investors, the way you get all those things is by aggressively telling people about your idea. So when I come up with a new idea, before I build anything, the first thing I do is get on Facebook and start obnoxiously telling people about it. Because I know that I can get customers, I can get people interested before I've even finished building the thing, right? So if you get too stuck in the mindset of like, I don't want anyone to know what I'm working on, you're really going to hit a lot of roadblocks. And the reality is it's not how businesses get launched. Cool. Okay. And the good thing about using Glide is that it allows you to get something up and running quickly. But let's say hypothetically that like you did find something out there. You did a Google search and you found something kind of similar to what you wanted to build. Right? Like in tech, we think there can only be one of something, but there's Uber and there's Lyft, and they both make a lot of money. When you go down the bread aisle, there's all kinds of brands, right? Imagine someone saying, I can't launch a bakery in New York because there's already a bakery. There's no other business where we think that way. And so even if you did find something on the internet that was similar, it shouldn't stop you from putting your own spin and approach to it. Okay, other questions. Jacita says, do you guys have like, I think it was like Glide webinars. Do you guys do webinars and classes?
Yeah, we've been doing these power hours on a fairly regular basis with the community, and we're actually ramping those up. So best bet there, head to the Glide community. Everything that we do gets posted up there in announcements.
Love it. Shoshana says, is there a, interesting. Is there like a time limit on what someone creates on Glide and is able to resell? I can maybe answer that, and maybe we can both answer that. There's not a time limit on what you're able to create and resell. And oftentimes I know people get worried that like Glide might own your idea. And here's how I typically think about this. And then like Andy, you can sort of maybe describe it the way you think about it. I think about it as like, imagine that you're an author and you use Microsoft Word to write your book. Right? Microsoft does not own all of the rights to your book idea. You're just using their tool to bring it to life. And so it works similarly with using a platform like this. Andy, anything you wanted to add to that?
That's just it. I'm actually copying and pasting a little bit from our terms of service and adding a link in the chat. So if you really want to get into the details, you can click that link and see
Beautiful.
all the terms.
I love it. I love it. Fabian says, I've designed a whole family budget in Excel. Can I convert that into Glide?
That's a fun one. That sounds like a fun Glide project. Yeah, connect Excel to Glide. It's surprisingly powerful what you can do. So if you want to visualize your budget, do some interactions with your budget, absolutely.
Yeah, I love this. Okay, very cool. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Monica has a question. Let's say you wanted to have a college tuition cost on the app, and if it changes every year, could you link to the college course tuition page so that people could like see what the current price is? Okay. And you can answer this one. That's a pretty straightforward thing to do. We didn't do this in our model. Any thoughts, Andy, on like how she might structure that?
Sorry, I was diving into the Q&A
no
tab.
I can answer this one. I'll give you the next one. The answer is yes, absolutely. So what you could do is you could have a column in your database for link to the page. And so that way the link can show up and people can click on it and they can see like whatever the updated external site page information is. Yeah. LaTanya had a question about like if Glide was really like GoDaddy and how like something like GoDaddy and Glide kind of like interact and what the difference is. And any thoughts on this?
This feels oddly specific since I used to work at GoDaddy.
Okay, there we go. All right, so you know the difference.
Yeah. So if you're familiar with GoDaddy products, you'll know that they have a website builder, and I would say that the level of or the ease of use of Glide is very similar to the website builder, in that you're working with these blocks or components and putting them on the page, changing settings, making some customizations. It's really easy to get started with Glide, and it's the things that you can do as you become more familiar with the platform where it really starts to surprise you on how powerful it can be.
Yeah, I love it. I think oftentimes too, Andy, people will buy their domain on GoDaddy, and if you bought a domain there, you could put that domain on your myapp.com, whatever it is,
Yes.
on your Glide app. You could do that.
Yep. You knew custom domain.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. The other thing, and Maurice had a question and sort of thought too around protecting your idea. And I want to say this as well about this. I actually sat down with lawyers and paid money for them to tell me this. So I think you should know this. You cannot legally protect an app idea that you've not built. So when you sit down to fill out all the paperwork for it, they're going to ask you for the link to what you made, or some sort of documentation of what you made. So you need to make something. And we talk about that, by the way, in the bootcamp process. One of my favorite things to do is to find law firms. They have to be a law firm that specializes in startups. And what they'll do is they will give you pro bono free hours for a certain number of hours of work. And it's a really good thing to work with them on, to have them help you with your legal protection. It's just that we have to make something first, right? And then Enrique says, someone took the call time that I was trying to schedule. They booked it right from you. If you hit refresh, you'll be able to re-see what the times are and get another time that works for you. Cool. And let me see. I just want to make sure the calendar still has some times. Okay, we're still good. There's still a handful of times. There's not a lot, but there's maybe like 15 or so time slots. So if you want to talk with me and my team, you can't see my screen. I'm showing you this. If you want to talk with me and my team about your app idea, getting help with your app idea, and if the 8-week training program makes sense for you, you can schedule some time, and there's a handful of spots still left. Cool. Okay, other questions? I know Andy's answering directly some good questions in here, particularly some of the technical questions. Did we answer this one already? Oh, wait, you did about like reminders and those sorts of things.
Yes, the notifications. Yeah. Can
you talk a little bit about like what Zapier is and how someone might use Zapier in connection with Glide?
Sure. So there are services like there's Zapier, there's Make, which used to be called Integromat. Another one, If This Then That we don't work with, but it's a similar tool. And what it allows you to do, if you've ever heard the term API get thrown around, this is something that developers use to connect different apps together. So a tool like Zapier or Make will let you do that same thing without having to write any code. So you can connect, let's say you want to connect your Glide app to an email service provider like MailerLite or something else. You can do that with Zapier or with Make. So if you're ever wondering, what can I connect my app to, take a look at Zapier, take a look at Make, look at the integrations for Glide, and you will be able to see what sort of connections you can make between your Glide app and other tools.
Yeah. Felicia has a question. Can I create an app that can be white labeled for clients? You absolutely can. And actually, we're going to talk about the business strategy of this tomorrow in our business warm up. We'll talk about like what it means to white label and why that means you can charge different kinds of price points for your app idea. Maybe you're thinking you could charge 99 cents only, but we're going to talk about how you can do that. But yes, Felicia, the quick answer is yes, you can totally do that. Let's see, what other questions? There's a question, will we have access in the replay to the Q&A chat? Yes, you will be able to see the Q&A. And so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to answer a couple more questions. However, I want to just tell you what your homework is. So there's two ways to do this challenge. Way number one is the homework free way. You just watch, you hang out with me and Andy, and you learn some stuff, take some notes. And that's totally an okay way to participate. But if you want to really dig in and see what this is like for yourself to build this app with us, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the recording as soon as we're done, and you can watch it and sort of, pause, rewind where you need, and sort of side by side do all the building that I did, so that tomorrow you'll come to class with the app that I've built thus far. You'll have the same thing on your computer, and we can continue building more fancy stuff on top of that. So that's the second way that you can participate, by building along. Cool. Okay. Karen says, are you going to coach us about SEO? Great question. So in my 8-week training program, we're not actually going to spend a ton of time on SEO. Here's why. In the beginning, when you're first starting, the main way you're going to get customers is by going out and getting them. SEO is sort of it's search engine optimization, and it means that you show up, in the Google results when people are Googling for you. And it's an important part of marketing. I just personally think it's not the first thing that you should spend your time on in marketing. The first thing we got to do is actively go get customers. And we're going to be doing a little bit more of some proactive marketing strategies, as opposed to some of the marketing strategies where you wait for someone to come to you. Those are all really valid, but they're sort of the next phase of what you're going to do later. We're going to focus on some other marketing approaches. Okay, Reginald has a question, and Andy, I don't know if you already got this, maybe you can talk about this, about how people are securely managing their customers' information. So, like, how is the information securely housed? How does that work?
It's a beefy topic.
Yeah.
My rule of thumb, whenever you're doing anything like building an app and you're holding sensitive information, depending on where you are and where your users are, there are different laws that have to be complied with. So you could look up GDPR for how you handle customer data, how you make that data accessible to your customers. It's a really big topic and not something that I can quickly answer in a couple of minutes. Tara, if you have a better way of addressing that one.
Yeah. I mean, so we think about sort of like the security of the database, and really, like, your data is going to be housed. It depends on remember when you saw that pop up and it asked you, like, where's your data source, right? Some of that depends on the answer that you chose. But let's say that, for example, you chose like Google Sheets, right? Like, typically when you're building your app's going to be, the information is going to be housed in either Google, Firebase, Amazon Web Services, one of those sort of like big companies that host data. So Google, for example, is an example of one where your spreadsheet information is going to be hosted there. And you can set your security settings and those sorts of things. And you can also set the settings for who can see what in your app, so that you're really securely housing and also presenting things that only certain people can see. And then there was a question about if this is a good substitute. I don't know if, Andy, have you ever used Kajabi? Are you familiar with Kajabi?
I haven't used Kajabi myself, but I've worked with a lot of folks who have.
Okay. I think there was a question of like, if this could be a substitute for Kajabi. Do you have thoughts on that?
The answer, I did drop an answer in the chat, and
okay,
yeah, what I will say about things like this is that there are other tools out there that are for a specific use case. The beautiful thing about Glide is that you can build a custom app or tool for your own needs. So you don't need to worry about fitting what you're doing into someone else's box. Build the solution that you want.
That's right. Yeah. Kajabi does one thing and Glide does all the things. Lots of things. Cool. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pause here. I'm going to send you the replay and you can follow along. If you still have questions, you have two options. You can bring the question tomorrow, because we'll be back here tomorrow for day 2. You also can send me an email if you have a question. The best way to email me is to just hit reply to the last email I sent you. So I sent you an email like, hey, log in. Here's the link to join. You can just reply to that. Cool. All right. Nice. Okay. We will see you guys tomorrow. I will send you the replay if you want to follow along and do homework. Either way, We'll be back here, same place, and I'll send you the link so that you have the link for tomorrow as well. Cool. All right. Thanks, y'all. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. Mama said, fulfill the prophecy, be something great. Go make a legacy, manifest destiny. Back in the days, we wanted everything, wanted everything. Mama said, burn your biographies, rewrite the history. Light up your wildest dreams, museum victories. Every day, we wanted everything, wanted everything. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated.